Okay, please now welcome the Executive Director of the Vermont Arts Council, Alex Aldrich. Alex is going to present the Distinguished Public Service Award. This award honors an outstanding chair or council member whose advocacy and leadership makes a real difference for the arts in his or her state and sets an example for the nation. Alex.
Thank you, Jonathan. And thanks also to the staff and committee members of NASA who have arranged things so that at this time, in this place, and in front of this 40th anniversary assembly, I have the privilege of introducing Peggy Kannenstine of Woodstock, Vermont, as the recipient of the National Assembly of State Arts Agency's 2008 Distinguished Public Service Award. Many of you already know Peggy from her recent service as a board member of NASA. Some of you know her as an artist, and some of you know her as an arts advocate. But only one of you knows her as a wife. Lou, please stand and be recognized. Rather than share with all of you all of the great things on which she has provided leadership over the years around cultural heritage tourism, integrated arts education, elder arts, the creative economy, and most recently, our statewide community arts initiatives, I only want to tell a small story that will, I hope, reveal to you the essence of her character and personality. About 12 years ago, Peggy hired me as the council's new executive director. At the time, I was in what Dennis Dewey might describe as my pre-emerging phase as an arts leader. I was still wrapped up in my post-MBA cocoon and hoping to break out from this professional chrysalis and emerge into a full-blown arts administrative butterfly. The setting was my first Arts Council annual meeting at the Ascutney Mountain Resort outside Windsor, Vermont on a beautiful October day. I was to give a little speech, meet a few important people, and above all else, make a good impression. Unfortunately, I wore a suit. A word to all of you planning a trip to Vermont: unless you are actually Howard Dean, leave the suit at home. But despite this sartorial faux pas, somehow I passed muster. After the meeting, we broke for a tasty family-style lunch of cold cuts and beet salad, and about midway through this meal, I asked the guy in the flannel shirt across from me if he would be good enough to pass the pitcher of iced tea that was at his elbow. Now, 5 years in Atlanta, Georgia, had introduced me to the delight of sweet tea. And knowing that this beverage was largely unknown north of the Virginia border, I proceeded to pour myself a glass, squeeze a little lemon into it, and add a couple of healthy spoonsful of sugar into the brew. I didn't notice the subtle shift in mood around me at the table. The furtive glances sent in my direction from guarded northerners, intent on minding their own business while waiting for disaster to strike the overdressed flatlander from away. I stirred my tea and took a huge gulp of Coca-Cola. Now, not with one, but with 2 heaping spoons of sugar in it. It was the culinary equivalent of walking off a curb you don't know is there. I managed to avoid spraying the good people across the table from me, but I did spend a few awful moments coughing and gagging before I could recover sufficiently to speak. Oh, that was Coca-Cola, not tea. I hoped I sounded sufficiently wounded. Yes, nodded everyone within earshot, including Peggy. Actually, she said, it was Pepsi. Well, my God, Peggy, if you knew it was Pepsi, why on earth did you let me put more sugar into it? And it was at this moment that I first experienced the Peggy Kannenstine charm, and what she said then has endeared her to me forever. Why, Alex, I just figured that you being from the South, that was just how all you people took your Pepsi. Everyone laughed then, too. And here I am, 12 years later, saluting the always gracious, always forgiving, always ready to roll up her sleeves and get to work, 2008 recipient of the NASA Distinguished Public Service Award, the Honorable Margaret Peggy Kannenstine. Before Peggy speaks, I should also point out that part of her award is this lovely wood-turned vessel by Ray Sandusky, whose bio is in your program. So this will also go with this lovely certificate that you have in front of you. Thank you. Peggy?
Thank you, Alex. Thank you for telling that very funny and wonderful story. I still remember that occasion, too. And I thank all of you, Chairman John Roman over here, and Dennis Dewey, and Jonathan Katz, and everyone in the room. Thank you so much. You know, I am standing here still in a state of astonishment at receiving this great honor. When I was first told the news of the award, I think I was speechless for a few moments, which is a pretty rare event in itself. And then I just need to say this holds great meaning for me. And I'm truly honored to have my time of service to the arts noticed in this fashion. From my time on the NASA board, I remember many of the past recipients, and I am thrilled to be in their company. And being in this room with you takes me back to my very first NASA conference, the one that was held in Providence, Rhode Island. I know some of you here were there. And ED Randy Rosenbaum was running around making sure everything was just right and cheering people on. Now, I'd like you to know that I had been the chair of the Vermont Arts Council for 2 days. Yeah. So I walked into the hotel with our then executive director, Nikki Clark, and I just saw this mass of people surging around. And so that was my first impression, was this huge mass of people of whom I knew no one. So I went up to the reception desk where I got my badge that had a little star for being new on it from Johanna Meisey Boyer, who immediately asked me to help lead one of the breakout sessions. So I got right in the swim of things on my very first day at my very first NASA conference. You know, I've learned so much from every one of you that I've gotten to know and admire through this organization. My first gathering, the one in Rhode Island, was when I first met Tog Newman and heard her wise thoughts as she led us in the chair's peer sessions. And many, many of you that I got to meet very first time then, I think fondly of all of you. And of course, I think particularly fondly of Wayne Lawson coming into the Memphis ballroom on his motorcycle. Remember that? But you know, there's so much insight and knowledge in this room. There's so much passion for the great work of art in these gatherings. I appreciate the way in which the state arts agencies share our ideas and our knowledge. Our state of Vermont has been a model. Many of you have looked at the programs that we have developed and used us as a model, and we have done the same with you. I very much like the collaborative nature of the way that we share our thinking and for the benefit of all of our communities. Now, people have told me that it's uncommon for an artist to spend much time and effort in the civic arena. But like Mary Miss this morning, I must say that for me, it balances the quiet hours in the studio very, very, very well. Being a working part of a vital, living community is as important to me as the solitude and reflection in my own painting studio. To me, it is natural because I consider all art to be communication with others. In addition, kind of again in agreement with Mary Miss this morning, maybe I should just quote everything she said because I really agreed with so much of what she said. We artists have a somewhat different point of view from those people who are very, very left-thinking and linear and analytical. We can do both things. We can imagine and analyze and bring them together. We can take the leap from imagination to solid reality quite readily. It's what we do in our studios all the time, and I, for one, am an artist who loves to do it within community. Community is very important to me. Art, my own and that of others, has been central to my whole life. My generation was fortunate, as Chairman Dana Gioia said, to have music, art classes, speech choir, stage performance as a natural part of our public schooling. My grade school years were spent in Chicago, where all this was just standard in those days. And my parents noticed my emerging talents and sent me off to the local music school and the local minor art museum called the Art Institute, a wonderful place. And then when we moved to Ohio, I majored in the arts in my public high school. I don't think you can do that these days. We had a choir, we had a drama, we had, you name it. I think the only art we didn't have was dance. I think that was the only one. And shouldn't that be the picture for our children now? It seems to me that it should be. Yes. Oh, thank you. Thank you. You know that I've gone on to be a professional artist, but I think everyone in this room knows that the arts in education make more creative and more thoughtful businessmen and bankers and lawyers and senators and representatives in Washington. And we think about the creative economy a lot. And people who have the arts in their education as a standard are a big part of the creative economy in other ways. You know, they're making wonderful restaurants or new software for our computers, all the ways that we all talk about all the time. But you know as well as anyone how much there still is to do. There's no time for me to talk about the benefits of the arts for all of us as we age, or for reaching and involving people with disabilities, or for, to quote the subtitle of a new book that I liked, the title, I haven't read the book yet, it's called Art for Life's Sake. I like that. We've heard art for art's sake. Now, art for life's sake. I think that's terrific. I would love to see every school have the arts as standard. I'd love to see the NEA budget tripled so that all state arts agencies can fulfill the capacities for creative work in their states. I'd love to see our cultural heritage protected by, at last, the passage of the Artist Museum Partnership Act, so ably shepherded by my own Senator Patrick Leahy, and more. Any more that you can imagine that we can do if you will help me go advocate for it. You give me a great honor today, and my words don't come close to saying the glow that I feel. Sometimes awards like this are given at the end of a person's working life, but I want to assure you, I ain't done yet. I'm not. I would like to close by saying a story about the very beginning of my career as a leader in the arts. I was chair of our local council on the arts in my small town of Woodstock. And after a residency in the local elementary school, a 10-year-old boy wrote to Pentangle, "Thank you for the best day of my life." That says everything about why I'm not quitting work. It says everything about why I have found my time spent working for the arts so extremely satisfying. Thank you very much.